The San Quentin State Prison, California. The count. The guard counted the heads again. 1, 2, 3. Then he stopped. Something was wrong. A cell door stood open. No shouting. No alarms. No signs of a struggle. Just empty space where a man should have been. Beyond the prison walls, San Francisco Bay stretched out in silence. Cold. Dark. Unforgiving. At that moment, San Quentin realized something it had not faced in decades. Someone might have escaped. And if that was true, nothing about this prison was as secure as it claimed to be. The prison by the water. The fog clung low to the ground that morning, wrapping San Quentin in silence. From a distance, the prison looked almost peaceful. Gray stone walls. Still water. Seagulls circling above. But inside those walls, fear lived quietly. San Quentin State Prison sits on the edge of San Francisco Bay, just north of the city. It is California's oldest prison, a place with a name heavy enough to stop conversations. For generations, men arrived here knowing one thing. This was not a place you left. The bay might look close enough to touch, but it was cold enough to kill. Built to be impossible, San Quentin opened in 1852, when California was still finding its footing. The gold rush had brought opportunity, but also violence. Crime surged. The state needed somewhere permanent to send its worst offenders. They chose this location on purpose. Sharp rocks beneath the water. Strong, unpredictable currents. Freezing temperatures year-round. Escape meant swimming against nature itself. From the beginning, San Quentin was designed not just to hold men, but to defeat hope. Life inside the walls. Inside the prison, life followed a rigid rhythm. Lights on. Counts taken. Orders shouted. Some inmates worked in the kitchen. Some in laundry rooms thick with steam. Others cleaned corridors that never seemed to end. Talking too much could bring punishment. Disobedience could bring isolation. Dark cells. Minimal light. Long hours alone with your thoughts. San Quentin tested more than bodies. It tested minds. And not everyone passed. The shadow of death row. By the early 1900s, San Quentin's reputation had grown darker. It housed California's most notorious criminals. And it became home to the state's death row. Executions were carried out inside its walls. First by hanging. Later by gas chamber. The gas chamber sat quiet most days. But everyone knew it was there. That knowledge changed people. Some became silent. Some became angry. Some became desperate. And desperation, inside a prison like this, was dangerous. The man who watched the water. In 1937, one inmate spent hours staring at the bay. His name was Theodore Cole. He was young, physically strong, and restless. Cole believed something most prisoners did not. He believed escape was possible. He studied guard routines, count times, blind spots, fog patterns. He watched the water every day. And while others saw death, Cole saw opportunity. Warnings ignored. Other inmates warned him. They said the water would kill him. They said the current was too strong. They said no one had ever survived the swim. Cole listened, but he didn't believe them. To him, the bay was not a barrier. It was a challenge. And once that idea took hold, there was no stopping it. On a foggy afternoon in December 1937, it happened. Cole and another inmate moved quickly. Too quickly for guards to react. They ran. They climbed. And then they jumped. Straight into San Francisco Bay. Alarms sounded. Guards rushed to the edge. Shots were fired into the air. But the water swallowed them. Arms cut through waves. Heads disappeared into fog. Then nothing. No bodies were recovered. No final proof. Official answers, unofficial doubts. Officials declared the men dead. They said the bay was too cold. The currents too strong. Survival impossible. Case closed. But not everyone believed it. Fishermen claimed they saw movement in the water. Rumors spread quietly. Questions lingered. Had someone actually escaped San Quentin? Or did the bay simply keep it secret? Years of tension. Time passed. San Quentin filled with new inmates. New crimes. New stories. Some men became famous behind bars. Others vanished into the system. Poems were written. Paintings were made. Escape plans were whispered. Most never happened. But the idea remained. The prison grew older. Heavier. More crowded. And the water never moved. Overcrowding and pressure. By the 1960s and 70s, San Quentin was overcrowded. Cells built for one now held two. Tension filled every hallway. Guards worked long shifts. Inmates watched one another closely. Trust disappeared. One wrong look could start a fight. One rumor could spark fear, and death row continued its slow, quiet march. Men waited years, sometimes decades. Every footstep sounded like a question. Is this the day? Signs of weakness. Then something changed. A guard noticed a vent had been loosened. Screws missing. Metal bent. Someone had been working carefully, patiently. Searches followed, but no tools were found. No one confessed. It was as if the prison itself was being tested. Walls meant to last forever were beginning to show cracks. Rumors and denial. Rumors spread quickly. Some said inmates had help from inside. Others whispered about bribery. A few claimed San Quentin was no longer escape-proof. Officials denied everything. Security was strong, they said. Nothing was wrong. But then another incident occurred. A prisoner briefly went missing during count, found later in the wrong unit. He claimed it was a mistake, but his eyes told a different story. The door. That night, fog rolled in again. Cells locked. Lights dimmed. The prison grew quiet. From the outside, San Quentin looked calm. But inside, plans were forming. Secrets were being shared, and the bay reflected moonlight like an open door. A guard paused during his patrol. He looked toward the water, and for a moment, he wondered, what if someone actually made it? He turned back toward the cell block, and that's when he saw it. A door that should have been locked. Wasn't. The door left open. The door was open only a few inches. Not wide, not broken, just slightly out of place. But inside a prison like San Quentin, that tiny gap meant everything. A door is either locked or it isn't. There is no middle ground. The guard stopped walking. His breath slowed. He listened. No footsteps. No whispers. No movement. Only the low electrical hum from the lights overhead. And far away, the soft sound of water touching the shore. For a moment, the entire tier felt frozen in time. Then he stepped forward, slowly, carefully, and pushed the door open. The cell was empty. The bed too perfect. At first glance, nothing looked wrong. The bed was made perfectly. The blanket folded flat like it had been measured with a ruler. The pillow centered at the top. Too clean. Too neat. It didn't look slept in. It looked staged, like someone had taken the time to erase their presence. The small metal sink dripped once, then stopped. No personal items were scattered. No signs of panic. Just quiet order. But the man assigned to that bed was gone. And in a place where every movement is tracked, that should not have been possible. Procedure over panic. The guard didn't shout. Didn't run. Running caused panic. And panic spread fast inside prison walls. Instead, he stepped back, closed the door again, walked briskly down the corridor. Calm, controlled, professional. San Quentin had procedures for everything, even the unthinkable. Within minutes, supervisors were notified. Phones rang. Radios crackled. Orders were given. Counts began, quietly at first. Then everywhere, the count, every unit, every tier, every cell. Names echoed through concrete halls. Men stood at their doors, some expressionless, some curious, some pretending not to care, a few smiling faintly. Because inside prison, information spreads fast, faster than guards realize. The name was called. No answer. Called again. Nothing. The silence confirmed what no one wanted to admit. This wasn't paperwork. This wasn't a mistake. Someone was missing. Lockdown. Then came the word every inmate knows. Lockdown. Metal doors slammed shut across the facility. One after another. A wave of steel crashing through the blocks. The sound rolled like thunder. Programs stopped. Work stopped. Movement stopped. Men were sealed into their cells. Some cursed. Some laughed. Some simply laid down and stared at the ceiling. Because everyone understood what lockdown meant. Searches. And searches meant secrets rarely stayed hidden. The quiet inmate. The missing inmate wasn't famous. Not a gang leader. Not loud. Not aggressive. He didn't cause problems. And that made him harder to notice. Quiet men often see more than they say. He worked maintenance. A trusted job. He fixed lights. Checked vents. Replaced bolts. Moved through back hallways most inmates never entered. Places cameras didn't always cover. Places guards rarely visited. He learned the prison in ways others couldn't. Not through maps. Through memory. Step by step. Day by day. Signs of patience. Investigators walked the prison slowly, looking closer than before. They noticed small things. Scratches near vents. Screws not tightened all the way. Dust disturbed where dust should have settled for years. Tiny clues. Easy to miss. But together, they told a story. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't emotional. This wasn't someone acting out of fear. This was patience. Weeks, maybe months, of quiet preparation. The bay watch. Outside, the bay moved calmly. Cold water. Gray sky. Guards scanned the surface with binoculars. Boats were placed on alert. If someone jumped, they would know. If someone swam, they would see. But there was nothing. No splash. No movement. No signal. And that created a new fear. A worse one. What if he hadn't gone into the water at all? What if he was still inside? Somewhere watching. The walls listen, guards had a saying. The walls listen. It meant secrets don't stay buried. Every whisper travels. Every plan leaves a trace. San Quentin remembers everything. Or at least it was supposed to. But now, the walls weren't telling anyone anything. They felt quiet. Too quiet. Like the building itself was holding its breath. The hidden space. The search widened. Old areas were opened. Storage cages moved. Panels inspected. Then someone noticed something strange. A loose section behind a metal rack. Barely visible. Behind it, a narrow space. Not tall enough to stand. Just enough to crawl. Air heavy with dust and age. Flashlights cut through darkness. The space wasn't on any blueprint. No official record. Meaning it was older than memory. San Quentin had secrets even its own staff didn't fully understand. Prison on edge. The prison entered full emergency mode. No jobs. No classes. No recreation. Just waiting. Hours turned slow. Inside their cells, men thought. Some prayed. Some slept. Some stared at the ceiling. And some planned. Because when one person almost escapes, others start believing they can too. Hope spreads fast. Even dangerous hope. The interviews began. Guards first. Then workers. Then inmates. Most said the same thing. I didn't see anything. I don't know anything. But one inmate hesitated. He remembered something small. Weeks earlier. Late at night. The missing man near a utility corridor. Somewhere he shouldn't be. The inmate said the man smiled. Not nervous. Not scared. Just calm. Like he already knew something everyone else didn't. That smile stayed with him. Time is dangerous. Records showed no violence. No escape history. No major rule breaking. On paper, he looked ordinary. But he had one powerful advantage. Time. Years inside the same walls. Learning routines. Studying patterns. Understanding habits. Time inside prison can change a person. It can break them. Or it can make them patient. Very patient. Media pressure. Outside the walls, the story spread. News vans parked nearby. Helicopters circled overhead. Cameras pointed at the prison. Reporters asked the same question again and again. How does someone vanish from one of the most secure prisons in America? Officials gave careful answers. Measured statements. But uncertainty showed. Because if San Quentin could lose one man, what else could it miss? The clothing. Then came a report from a fisherman. Clothing near the shore. Prison-issued pants. Soaked. Heavy. Worn, but not destroyed. Officials said it was proof. He must have drowned. Case closed. But some guards weren't convinced. Currents here were strong. They dragged things away. Not gently onto land. Something didn't add up. Inside help. Whispers spread through the blocks. Through vents. Through pipes. Through glances. One rumor rose above all others. Someone helped him. From the inside. Then, quietly, a guard disappeared from duty. No announcement. No explanation. His name simply vanished from schedules. Officially, it was unrelated. But inside San Quentin, everyone noticed. The notebook. During a late-night sweep, a small notebook was found hidden in a wall cavity. Inside weren't letters. Or drawings. They were maps. Distances. Timings. Shift changes. Camera angles. Carefully written observations. At the bottom of one page were 3 simple words. Water is not the way. That sentence changed everything. If he didn't use the bay, then what path did he take? The sealed section. Narrator. The next morning, an old sealed area was reopened. Doors groaned. Dust rose into the air. Flashlights moved slowly across stone walls. This part of the prison was older than most of the staff. Forgotten. Ignored. Then someone pointed at the ground. Footprints. Fresh. Clear. Leading deeper. Then suddenly stopping. No return prints. No exit. Just gone. As if the walls themselves had swallowed him. The team looked at each other. Because now they understood something unsettling. The escape wasn't over. It was still unfolding. Somewhere inside the prison. And the walls were still listening. The door in O1 remembered. The door had not been opened in years. Some guards working that shift had never even noticed it before. It blended into the wall like part of the building itself. Paint faded, metal dull, no label, no reason to look twice. But now it stood at the center of everything. The supervisor placed both hands on the handle. For a moment, no one moved. Because once a sealed door opens, you don't know what history is waiting behind it. The hinges groaned. A long, sharp scream of metal scraping metal. Dust drifted down from the frame like gray snow. The air that rushed out felt different. Colder, older, like it had been trapped there for decades. Flashlights clicked on one by one, thin beams cutting into darkness. And slowly, the team stepped inside. Older than the prison. What the lights revealed made everyone pause. Stone. Not concrete. Not brick. Stone. Rough walls stacked by hand. Hand-carved steps. Edges worn smooth by feet that had passed long ago. This wasn't modern construction. This wasn't even early San Quentin. This was older. Older than the guards. Older than the records. Older, maybe, than the prison itself. It felt less like a hallway, and more like a forgotten basement beneath history. No cameras. No sensors. No official documentation. Which meant one thing. This place wasn't being watched. And in a prison, an unwatched space is the most dangerous space of all. The footprints. Then someone aimed their flashlight at the floor. And everything changed. Footprints. Clear. Sharp. Pressed into the thin layer of dust. Not old. Not faded. Fresh. Someone had walked here recently. Very recently. Not years ago. Not decades ago. Days. Maybe hours. The prints led deeper into the tunnel. Step after step. Like a trail. An invitation. Or a warning. The supervisor studied them quietly. Because those prints meant something impossible. It meant someone knew this place existed. And used it. The blind spots. San Quentin was supposed to be controlled. Every hallway mapped. Every door counted. Every camera positioned carefully. At least, that's what everyone believed. But this tunnel told a different story. There were blind spots. Spaces outside the system. Areas where time had simply stopped. And blind spots inside a prison are more than oversights. They are opportunities. If someone learned these paths, they could move unseen. Wait unseen. Hide unseen. The prison wasn't as secure as it thought. It just hadn't realized it yet. The split, the team moved slowly. No rushing. No shouting. Just boots against stone. Breathing echoing off the walls. The tunnel stretched ahead, then split in two. One path sloped downward. Toward the bay. Toward the water. The other curved inward. Back toward the oldest parts of the prison. They stopped. If the missing inmate had reached the water, it might already be too late. But if he was still inside, panic could spread fast. The supervisor made the call. Inward first. Find the living threat. Then worry about the rest. Markings on the wall. As they walked, the walls began to change. Marks appeared. Not random scratches. Intentional carvings. Tallies. Lines grouped in fives. Symbols. Short words pressed deep into stone. Some faded with age. Others sharp and fresh. Like they had just been cut. One word appeared again and again. Wait. 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 No one said it out loud. But everyone understood what it meant. Someone had spent time here. A lot of time. Waiting. Planning. Counting days. Maybe counting years. Above ground tension. Above ground. The prison felt different. Inmates sensed it. Guards moved faster. Radios crackled more often. Whispers traveled through vents and pipes. Rumors grew. Some said the missing man was already free, swimming toward the city, starting over. Others believed he was still inside, living in the walls, watching everyone. And a few believed something bigger. That San Quentin itself wasn't breaking, it had always been broken. People were just noticing now. The hidden chamber. The tunnel opened into a small chamber. Low ceiling, bare stone floor. And in the center, something modern. A bedroll, recently used. Food wrappers. Empty water bottles. Carefully stacked supplies. This wasn't random trash. This was survival. Someone had lived here. Not passed through. Lived. For days. Maybe weeks. Sleeping. Eating. Waiting. The missing inmate hadn't vanished. He had been hiding, right beneath everyone's feet. The maze, that discovery changed everything. If one person could hide here, others could too. San Quentin wasn't just a prison anymore. It was a maze. Layers of history stacked on top of each other. Old designs buried beneath new ones. Forgotten spaces between walls. And somewhere inside that maze, someone knew the path better than the guards did. That thought unsettled everyone. Because control is what keeps prisons stable. And control was slipping. The false wall. Another passage sloped upward. Stone turned to brick. Old brick. 19th century work. They followed it carefully. Then light appeared ahead. The tunnel ended behind a wall. But not a real wall. A false one. Carefully fitted. Designed to look permanent. It opened quietly. On the other side, a storage room. A place guards walked past every day. Boxes. Cleaning supplies. Nothing suspicious. Except now they knew. Someone had been entering and leaving right here. Without force. Without damage. Which meant only one thing. Access. Keys. Or help. Outside investigators. At that moment, this stopped being just a prison issue. Outside investigators were called. Because if staff were involved, it wasn't an escape attempt. It was corruption. Logs were reviewed. Maintenance records. Shift schedules. Key access reports. Slowly, patterns appeared. The missing inmate worked near this area often. Always cleared. Always supervised. And one guard's name kept appearing beside his. Over. And over. And over again. The questioning. The guard was experienced. Quiet. Close to retirement. No complaints. No disciplinary record. Trusted. He sat calmly during questioning. Hands folded. Voice steady. He denied everything. Said he noticed nothing unusual. Followed every rule. But investigators noticed something strange. His answers sounded practiced. Too clean. Too perfect. Like he'd rehearsed them. And sometimes, perfect stories hide imperfect truths. The second notebook. Back in the tunnel, another search uncovered something small. A second notebook. Hidden behind a loose stone. Inside were lists. Dates. Times. Names. Some inmates. Some guards. Some crossed out. Others circled. And on the final page, one sentence. Written slowly. Carefully. Only one leaves. The rest stay silent. No one spoke. Because that sentence suggested something bigger than escape. It suggested cooperation. Deals. Silence. And secrets. Trust collapses. The prison changed overnight. Guards watched each other. Supervisors double-checked everything. Inmates stopped talking openly. Trust vanished. Because if someone inside was helping inmates move unseen, how long had it been happening? Once? Twice? Or for years? San Quentin no longer felt solid. It felt uncertain. Like the ground itself might shift. History resurfaces. Then came another discovery. In a sealed section of tunnel, investigators found remains. An inmate reported missing years earlier. No record of transfer. No clear paperwork. Just gone. Until now. The discovery was handled carefully and respectfully. But the message was clear. This wasn't just one escape story. It was history. Layers of forgotten cases. Old questions. Old mistakes. Finally coming back to light. The warning. The suspected guard's home was searched. Nothing illegal. Nothing dramatic. Just maps. Old prison layouts. Studied. Marked. Handled so often the edges were worn. As if the prison wasn't just his workplace. But something personal. When questioned again, he didn't confess. Didn't deny. He simply said, "You don't understand what that place is. It keeps secrets because it has to." Then he stopped talking. And refused to explain. Sealed again. The tunnels were sealed. Concrete poured. Steel reinforced. Doors locked tight. Officially, the problem was solved. But fear doesn't seal like concrete. Inmates wash walls differently now. Guards listen to every sound. Because once you discover hidden spaces, you start wondering what you still haven't found. The knock. Late one night, during patrol, a guard stopped walking. He heard something. Soft. Faint. Not footsteps. Not voices. Scraping. Coming from behind the newly sealed wall. He pressed his ear closer. Silence. Then, a small shift of dust from a crack that shouldn't exist. He stepped back, heart pounding, and then he saw it. The wall moving. From the inside. A slow, deliberate knock. 3 times. As if someone was still down there. Waiting. The knocking did not stop. It came again. Slow. Careful. 3 soft taps. Not loud. Not violent. Just enough to be unmistakable. The guard froze in place. For a moment, he told himself it was nothing. Old buildings make noises all the time. Pipes shift. Concrete settles. Metal contracts in the cold night air. Every prison guard learns that lesson early. Ignore the sounds, or you'll drive yourself crazy. But this sound was different. It had rhythm. Space between each tap. Like intention. Like someone choosing when to knock. The guard stepped back so quickly he nearly lost his balance. His flashlight beam shook against the wall. The concrete was new. Smooth. Sealed only days ago. There was no door. No vent. No opening. Nothing that could explain it. And yet, he knew what he had heard. He called for backup. His voice cracked. Not from fear alone, but from confusion. Because confusion inside a prison can be more dangerous than anything else. Nothing there. Within minutes, more guards arrived. Boots echoed down the corridor. Radios hissed. Flashlights swept across the wall. They stood quietly, listening, waiting. 10 seconds. 30. A full minute. Nothing. No knock. No movement. Just the steady hum of electricity and distant ventilation. One guard laughed nervously. Probably the concrete settling, he said. It was the kind of explanation people give when they want something simple. Something safe. But no one truly believed it. Concrete does not knock 3 times. And everyone in that hallway knew it. Even if no one wanted to say it out loud. The report. The incident was logged. Short. Clinical. Unidentified noise behind sealed wall. No structural breach observed. On paper, it meant nothing. Just another line in another report. But inside the prison, it meant everything. Because prisons run on certainty. Doors lock. Counts match. Walls stay solid. When something small breaks that certainty, trust starts to crack. Word spread quietly. Through guards. Through whispers. Through vents and pipes that carried more than just air. Inmates heard. And when inmates hear that walls might not be solid, hope grows. And hope inside a prison can change everything. Federal arrival. By sunrise, this was no longer just an internal issue. Federal investigators arrived. Not just corrections officers. Engineers. Structural specialists. Records analysts. People trained to examine buildings the way detectives examine crime scenes. Because that's what this had become. Not an escape attempt. Not a rumor. But a structural mystery. A question of how much of San Quentin was truly known and how much had been forgotten. Equipment rolled in. Scanning devices. Ground sensors. Old blueprints pulled from archives. If something existed behind that wall, they would find it. Breaking through, they drilled carefully. Slow. Controlled. No rushing. No dramatic force. Just steady, professional work. The concrete gave way. Dust fell. A small opening appeared. Flashlights shined inside. And what they found was almost more unsettling than finding someone. Nothing. No tunnel. No person. Just a narrow hollow pocket between 2 layers of wall. Empty. Too empty. Too clean. No dust. No debris. Like the space had been disturbed recently. Like someone had been there and left. On the floor sat a single object. A folded piece of paper. Dry. Untouched. Placed carefully. The note. The note had no name. No date. No signature. Just one sentence. You closed the wrong door. The words were simple. Calm. Not threatening. Not emotional. Just matter of fact. Like a correction. Like someone pointing out a mistake. The room went silent. Because this wasn't history anymore. This wasn't decades-old mystery. Someone was active. Now. Inside the system. Watching what investigators did. Responding. Almost communicating. And that changed the entire investigation. Controlled lockdown. The prison entered controlled lockdown. Not the loud kind. Not sirens and shouting. That causes panic. This one was quiet. Movement restricted. Counts increased. Work programs paused. More checks. More paperwork. More eyes. Inmates felt it immediately. They always do. When routine changes, people notice. When guards act differently, people talk. And San Quentin began to feel heavier. Like something unseen was pressing down on it. The old inmate. One inmate had been there longer than most staff. Over 30 years inside the same walls. He had seen everything. Riots. Lockdowns. Policy changes. Reforms. Administrations come and go. He told a younger inmate one night. The prison remembers. And when it remembers, people disappear. It sounded like folklore. The kind of story older inmates tell to scare the new ones. The younger man laughed. 2 days later, the older inmate was gone. Records listed a transfer. But there was no destination. No transport log. No vehicle assignment. Just paperwork. Signed. Approved. Finished. Too clean. Too fast. The guard again. The same signature appeared again. The quiet guard. The one investigators already questioned. They brought him in. This time, he didn't sit calmly. He paced. Asked questions instead of answering them. Did you check the north wall? Did you open the old workshop? Did you find the stairs yet? The investigators exchanged looks. What stairs? Someone asked. The guard stopped. Just for a second. But it was enough. Because sometimes what people accidentally reveal matters more than anything they deny. He was arrested that night for obstruction of the investigation. Not guilt. Not yet. But interference. And interference meant pressure. The phone. His phone revealed encrypted messages. Short. Simple. Coordinates. Times. Numbers. No names. Never names. Professional. Careful. One message stood out. Phase 3 active. Prepare the quiet room. No explanation. No context. Just those words. And for investigators, those 3 words changed everything. Because they suggested planning. Organization. Something structured. Not random behavior. Not one rogue employee. Something bigger. The abandoned wing. Searches expanded. Not just tunnels. Every forgotten space. Old workshops. Unused storage. Closed wings. Places everyone walked past, but no one truly checked. In an abandoned laundry wing, sealed since the 1980s, they found a door. Unlocked. Inside, a small room. Soundproofed. No windows. Minimal furnishings. Just space. And walls marked with faint scratches. Not violent marks. Not damage. Just repeated lines. At the same height. Like someone standing still counting days. Pressed words could be read under the light. Count me. Over and over. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. And that quietness was what disturbed investigators most. Because it suggested waiting. Time. Isolation. The numbers. Investigators rechecked historical counts. Daily head counts. Monthly totals. Annual reports. Everything matched. On paper. But paper depends on honesty. And honesty depends on people. One investigator finally said what no one wanted to consider. What if the system was designed to lose people? Not by accident. Not chaos. But bureaucracy. Transfers. Errors. Misfiled reports. Small gaps. Over years. Small gaps become disappearances. And disappearances become forgotten. Stories from retirees. Retired guards were interviewed. Most had never spoken publicly before. They described strange memories. Doors that appeared sealed but weren't. Sounds behind walls. Inmates who left units and never returned. At the time, each story felt isolated. Easy to dismiss. But together, they formed a pattern. A culture. An understanding passed down quietly. Don't ask too many questions. Trust the paperwork. Move on. Because sometimes institutions protect themselves before they protect the truth. The hidden space below, ground scans later revealed something unexpected. Beneath older sections of the facility, a large, empty space. Not on any blueprint. Too structured to be natural. They drilled carefully. Air rushed upward. Used air. Ventilated air. Which meant something important. That space wasn't ancient. It had been maintained. Recently, when they entered, they found lighting. Power. A board on the wall. Names written in marker. Some crossed out. Some circled. It looked less like a dungeon and more like a tracking system. A place someone monitored information privately, unofficially. And at the bottom, one fresh name. The missing inmate. Circled. The realization. Before anyone could process what it meant, the lights cut out. Emergency lights flickered on. The door closed automatically behind them. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just a standard safety lock engaging. But in that moment, the message was clear. Someone else still had access. Still had control. Still understood the prison better than the investigators did. Not a ghost. Not a legend. A person. An employee. Someone trusted. Watching. Waiting. Because sometimes the most powerful force inside a prison is not violence. It's silence. And silence fights back. The lock. The lock clicked once. A small, mechanical sound. Sharp. Final. Then again. And then nothing. No hum from the overhead lights. No ventilation system. No backup glow. Just darkness. The kind of darkness that feels heavy. The kind that presses against your eyes. Inside older correctional facilities like San Quentin, silence is never neutral. Prisons are machines. Machines breathe. Machines vibrate. Machines speak. When the sound stops, something is wrong. The investigators didn't move. Training teaches you that movement makes noise. And noise gives away position. Somewhere beyond that steel door, someone else was still in control. Not them. Not the state. Not the system. Someone else. A quiet voice drifted through the intercom. Calm. Measured. Almost gentle. You were warned not to dig. No anger. No threat. And somehow, that made it worse. Because anger is human. Calm is deliberate. One of the investigators finally spoke into the darkness. Who are you? A pause. Static. Then the answer. I am San Quentin. The line went dead. And for the first time that day, no one felt like they were standing inside a building. It felt like they were standing inside something alive. The vault. Flashlights flickered on one by one. Thin beams cutting through floating dust. The main door was inspected first. Not a standard correctional door. Not reinforced bars. Not sliding steel. This was different. Thicker. Sealed at the edges. Rounded hinges. More like a bank vault than a prison entrance. Someone whispered what everyone else was thinking. This wasn't built to hold inmates. Another voice answered quietly. It was built to hold secrets. Facilities evolve over time. Most prisons expand in layers. Wings added. Walls replaced. Blueprints updated. But sometimes, rooms survive that no one remembers building. Rooms that predate modern records. Rooms that serve purposes no one wants written down. Behind a loose maintenance panel, they found something unexpected. A second door. Older. Rust along the edges. Manual handle. Unlocked. No alarms. No electronics. Just gravity and metal. When it opened, the smell came first. Dust. Cold stone. Air that hadn't moved properly in decades. And below them, a narrow staircase. Leading down. Further than the official foundation of the prison should allow. Which meant only one thing. This level was never supposed to exist. How many? The investigators asked the only question that mattered. How many? The guard didn't answer right away. He looked down the corridor of cells. At the old stone. At the scratched names. At the history layered into the walls. Then he closed his eyes. More than you think. Not thousands. Not hundreds. But enough that the number would hurt public trust. Enough that reopening the past would break the institution itself. And that, he claimed, was why the system survived. Not because it was strong, but because no one wanted to look too closely. Above them, sirens began to sound. Real ones. Federal response. Oversight. Accountability. The outside world had finally noticed something wasn't right. Audits. Investigations. Media pressure. The modern system crashing into the old one. But underground, the guard gave a small, tired smile. You think this ends today? The collapse. Emergency systems triggered. Old locks disengaged. Backup mechanisms whirred to life. Decades-old hardware moving for the first time. Dust fell from the ceiling. Some corridors sealed automatically. Others opened. A design meant long ago to compartmentalize sections. To isolate. To contain. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just structural failure. A building rearranging itself. The investigators retreated. Fast. Through twisting halls. Up uneven stairs. Through doors that shut seconds after they passed. The underground wasn't collapsing violently. It was simply closing. Like a book. Like a secret returning to sleep. At the final exit, daylight poured in. Clean. Bright. Normal. The guard stopped. He didn't follow. Someone must stay, he said quietly. Not heroic. Not theatrical. Just matter of fact. Before they could react, he stepped back inside. Pulled the door shut. Manual lock. Permanent. Sealed from within. And just like that, the last keeper stayed with the past. The level beneath. The stairs groaned under each step. Concrete gave way to older materials. Stone. Brick. Iron. Construction styles from another century. San Quentin opened in the 1850s. Back when prisons were built less like institutions and more like fortresses. Many early facilities across America contained forgotten sublevels, storage vaults, isolation cells, and used foundations. Most were sealed. Some were simply forgotten. At the bottom of the stairs, a corridor stretched forward. Low ceiling. Long straight. Cells lined both sides. Smaller than modern standards. Narrow doors. Tiny openings. No windows. Some had numbers scratched into metal. Some had names etched into stone. And some had nothing at all. No identifiers. No history. Just space. Waiting. Then they found one cell that didn't fit. Clean floor. New mattress. Fresh air. Still warm. Someone had been there recently. Minutes ago. Not decades. Not years. Minutes. Which meant this wasn't history. This was active. The quiet guard. Footsteps echoed behind them. Slow. Steady. Unhurried. They turned. And there he stood. The quiet guard. The one who never talked much. The one who always worked late. The one whose name kept appearing in reports. Hands visible. No weapon. No fear. You shouldn't have opened that door, he said. His voice wasn't hostile. It wasn't defensive. It sounded resigned, like a man explaining gravity or the weather. He didn't resist, didn't run. Instead, he started talking. Because sometimes the truth comes out not under pressure, but under inevitability. He explained that prisons aren't just about walls. They're about control, about containment, about managing problems the public doesn't want to think about. And historically, every system develops quiet solutions. Solutions that don't make headlines. Solutions that don't require paperwork. According to him, there were always inmates who didn't fit categories. Too risky to release. Too complicated legally. Too visible for extreme measures. So they weren't removed. They weren't punished. They were simply moved. Off the books. Out of sight. Into spaces no one audited. He called it balance. Not cruelty. Not conspiracy. Balance. But balance depends on silence. Aftermath, the story exploded. Reviews. Hearings. Inspections. Architectural surveys. San Quentin underwent renovations. Modernization. New oversight. New documentation. Officially, no underground detention level was ever confirmed. Officially, no undocumented inmates existed. Officially, only one employee faced charges for obstruction. Because institutions rarely admit to ghosts, they repaint, they rebuild, they rename, and they move forward. But workers talk. Retired guards talk. Stories linger. Because old buildings remember things. Years later, during routine renovations, a maintenance worker paused near a newly poured wall. He thought he heard something. 3 slow taps. From the inside. He reported it. It was logged. Then sealed. Concrete poured again. Work continued. Because sometimes, the past isn't solved. It's covered. And places like San Quentin don't forget. They don't forgive. They simply grow quiet. And wait.